Good evening, barbecue enthusiasts. It is Saturday, March 9th, 2019. I've got the Lone Star Grillz 30 by 36 vertical offset firing up. I'm going to smoke and reverse sear a couple of ribeyes for dinner tonight. Full disclosure, before I go any further, there's not going to be a whole lot to see here. This is not really intended to be a how-to or how-do or anything like that. It's just going to be kind of a minor experiment. I had planned on making a video earlier this week doing a direct comparison of a smoker with an insulated firebox and an uninsulated firebox and see if there's any real difference side by side as to the quality of product that comes off. In order to do that, however, I'd have had to load up one of these smokers and haul it to another location that's currently under about 6 feet of snow. And my wife called me a damn fool for trying to do that for the sake of making a YouTube video, and of course she's right. So anyway, since I was going to make a video anyway, I just thought I'd do this tonight. As I say, it's going to be a minor experiment. I ordered this pit about 2 years ago, and when I first got it, I've been using it as much as any other pit for about 1.5 years now. When I first got it, I seasoned up the griddle on it, and actually did fry an egg on it. It did not stick. It worked very nicely, but I had not used the griddle ever since. So when I do steaks, I've been doing them, if anybody's familiar with barbecue very much, you're probably familiar with Meathead Goldwyn and AmazingRibs.com. He's got a book out called, I believe it's called The Science of Good Barbecue and Grilling, something like that. Anyway, it's a very good book, but this is kind of his method to do the smoking and then reverse sear. And normally what I do is do the sear either on a grate over the coals with the griddle removed here, and my other smokers have similar arrangements, most of them do anyway, or do the sear on the gas grill over here. I've been watching a guy on YouTube. I just found his channel here recently, a guy by the name of Sam the Cooking Guy. Pretty entertaining. He peppers his presentation with some salty language from time to time, so before you gather the family around the thing, just be aware of that. But it's mainly shtick. My wife is kind of a prude, and she didn't like the first couple episodes we watched, and now she gets a big kick out of it. But I digress. Long story short, I saw him do a steak here recently, and rather than doing the low and slow thing and then doing the sear, he seared his on a griddle and then put it on indirect heat on a gas grill. And it kind of got me to thinking about the griddle on this. I've been wanting to try some smash burgers and that kind of thing on this, so I thought tonight, instead of doing the grill, I might try to do the reverse sear on the griddle and see how that turns out. So that's basically what this is all about. We'll see how it turns out, and if it's really lousy, you're not going to see this. Pit's still coming back up to pit's coming up to temperature, I guess I should say. I'm going to let that stabilize here, and then we'll get some steaks on. Later. Okay, so here we are back at the pit. It's coming up to temperature. Just getting ready to put the steaks on. Again, this is not a how-to, but for anybody who's not familiar with the technique, I'll just give you a quick run-through. These are a couple of ribeyes, fairly thick, at least 1 inch, maybe slightly over, and you do want to use thicker steaks on this. So what we're going to do is put this on at a relatively low temperature. The pit right now is actually at about 200 degrees, which is pretty typical when I put meat on. That's where I like to have it. I like to develop a nice deep smoke ring. I don't go below 200 for food safety purposes. But again, I like to develop a nice deep smoke ring, and by deep I mean deep penetrating, not deep color, though that's desirable as well. And even though we're not gonna get anywhere near temperatures on these steaks tonight that would begin to turn the meat gray, what I do want to get is that smoke ring nice and pink, that so we get some overlap between the medium rare. That's what I'm shooting for tonight, and that smoke ring. So when it goes on the grill and starts searing, we don't get any gray meat anywhere. It doesn't take very long. Obviously, these are not very thick. Obviously, it's going to depend on how high or what temperature you're smoking your meat at, but probably about a half an hour or so. I'm bad at taking notes, and my memory sucks. So typically, I think about 30-35 minutes is what it takes to get the steak up to a temperature of about 105, 110. I find works for me. And again, it's going to depend on what temperature you're smoking your meat at, and also what temperature your grill is when you sear these things. So that's kind of the variable that we have here. I have an infrared thermometer. I'll take a temperature on this a little later and find out where we're at before we throw those on. But right now we're ready to throw these on. Okay, so also the light is waning. Of course, it's the evening, and I've got a light on the patio out here, but I'm not sure how well it's gonna illuminate all this. One thing I do with the steaks, and I also do this with a rib roast if I'm doing that, or a prime rib if you prefer. I put them in the freezer right before I put them, about a half an hour before they go on the smoker, just to get them a little chilled, again, to ensure that I get a nice deep smoke ring. And also, what the hell was I going to say? These aren't going to be on for very long. They're pretty, because we're only coming up to about 105, 110 internal temperature, which, by the way, a good instant read thermometer is also helpful when you're doing this kind of thing. But because they're going to be coming up to a relatively low temperature, it's not going to take them very long to get there, and I want them to go on as cool as possible so I get as much smoke flavor on the meat, since it's going to take them a little bit longer if you start out a little bit cold. But smoke ring development and getting as much smoke on the meat in a short period of time is what I'm shooting for here. If you're cooking on a cooker like this, a vertical offset, one other thing you'll notice, I don't have this on the bottom shelf. I've got it on a shelf up. It's convenient, and it's a little further away from the radiant heat. But this cooker, without a doubt, cooks from below, so the heat is coming up from below. So I learned that a hard lesson with a rib roast the very first time I did one on this. So, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip these about every 10 minutes or so, just so that they're getting cooked evenly, since everything is coming up from below. But that's about it until we're ready to sear. Okay, so here we are back at the pit. Time to give these guys a little flippy. Again, just to make sure that they don't get too done on one side and not done enough on another, and cooking unevenly, all that kind of thing. So, and I kind of digressed before. I always do that. I get sidetracked. Anyway, for anyone who's not familiar with this method, what we're doing, I'm going to close this up because we're kind of in the crucial phase of cooking now. We're just going to bring these slowly up to temperature. Again, about 105, 110 degrees, somewhere in that range, I think works for me. And we're going to finish these off on the griddle. In this case, you could do it on a grill too, to get it up to whatever your target internal temperature is for the level of doneness that you want. So that's basically it. I don't know if I elucidated that before. Yeah, I've had a couple of those. And I also apologize for the light out here. I just realized this is the night we spring forward to daylight savings time. If I'd realized that, I'd have started this an hour earlier. I'd have gotten to eat earlier, and once I've eaten, I get to have rum. So anyway, that's how this is going to go. I don't think I'll bother you with any more of the flips or anything. We'll check back in when it's time to do the searing. Okay, so I just gave the steaks a flip. They're pushing 100 degrees right now. They're going to be ready to transfer to the griddle pretty quick. Again, I apologize for the light out here. I don't know how visible this is, but I'm kind of curious. See, I think this has a light on it. Yeah, it does. I don't know if you can see that or not, but it's 463 degrees. I think I kind of slurred. I've had a couple of beers. 463 degrees. So it's pretty warm. I think it's going to sear them all right. I just thought I'd show that now because once the steaks come off, everything's going to happen pretty fast. Once those go on the griddle, I'm going to flip those about every 30, 40 seconds, somewhere in that range. We'll get Mr. Milliard out of Mr. Maillard out of the cookbooks and get his reaction. I'm pretty sure is what's going to happen. So hopefully this is going to turn out pretty good. Okay, so I just jerked those off, and that's probably not the best way to say that. I just pulled those off the smoker, and This is lard. This is bacon grease. I keep a jar of this in the refrigerator. When I fry bacon on Sundays, we have our Sunday standard, which is bacon, eggs, and hash browns. I just pour some of the bacon grease through a coffee filter to get all the crumbs and stuff out of it. Put a bit more of that on there. Never have too much, right?
Nope.
Okie doke. I didn't need quite that much. See if I can salvage a little bit of that for next time. Here we go. Hun? Thank you. Sounds pretty good. Okay, so give those a flip every 30 seconds or so, 35 or 40. Hand me the infrared thermometer. Thanks, honey. Kind of curious to see what. Let's see, get the light going on that. 533 degrees. Yep, good. So that's how it's going to go until these get to an internal temperature of about 130 degrees, maybe 127. The older I get, the rarer I like my meat. But and of course, you're going to have some carryover cooking too, so you want to keep that in mind. I think that's about it. I'm going to turn this off for a moment. There you go, viola.
Yum.
Let's work on a baked potato now. Conclusion. Meh. I'm not really sure what I expected, but it wasn't quite what I was expecting, I guess. From a convenience standpoint, it is great. You just pull the meat off the smoker and throw it right on the griddle there, so that's great. You don't have to mess with another grill or setting up the cooking grate in the firebox. The steaks last night on both sides had a little bit of gray on one side. I'm not really sure what's happened there. Of all the times I've done a steak, even early attempts, I never had that happen before. They tasted fine. They, in my opinion, lacked a little bit of smoky flavor that they typically seem to retain on the grill. That the griddle, I don't know if it cooks it off or what the deal is there, and it didn't seem to add anything as far as flavor, the Maillard reaction and that sort of thing. So. Yeah, it's worth trying again. In fact, my wife thinks I'm being too critical. She thought it was as good, if not better, than any of the other steaks I've ever done. So I'll tinker around with it. I'll definitely do it again for the ease of preparation. So, but apart from that, no, what you're looking at here has absolutely nothing to do with the cook last night. So this is strictly filler, stock footage, if you will. So anyway. Hope this was useful to somebody. If you liked it, whatever you do, don't like or subscribe. That's how I do this. If anybody gets anything out of these, that's good enough for me. I'm mainly doing this for my own entertainment. So anyway, again, hope you enjoyed it. Have a dandy day. See you next time, maybe for a firebox review. Bye.